Good afternoon. It's Friday, September the 18th, and it's Fridays with Father, so it's my turn to just sit and talk to you for a short while and hopefully come up with something of interest. Today, I want to talk about two things really, young people and poems. Not at the same time, one after the other, but they're not mutually exclusive either. But first of all, I want to talk to you about young people. Reason being, I think, as I said to you last week, that my activity last Friday evening was to meet with our youth group here at Church of the Holy Spirit. And I did that. And I suppose in preparation for my meeting, I'd asked around about the youth group, and a number of people said to me, "We don't know that there's a youth group in our parish. We didn't know that. We didn't know that. So, but now you do." Because I've met with a number of them, and I did that last Friday evening, and it was a nice meeting. It was kind of slightly awkward because I was new, and they didn't want to speak to me really, which is perfectly understandable. I mean, there's nothing, I'm the stranger here, and there's nothing more strange than a new priest. So and even more strange, a new priest with a strange accent, So, but they introduced themselves to me, and they were very kind and very welcoming. And what I can tell you is I met about 18 of what would be like the core group of young people here at our parish, and ranging from the ages of 14 to 19, and some have been involved for a number of years in this program. And they meet mostly on a Thursday evening from 7 till 9, and is coordinated by one of our staff members, Rosie Viquez, our pastoral associate, and there are a couple of adult kind of helpers as well. And they tend to meet, and they have prayer, and they do a bit of Bible study. They look at the readings for the Sunday, and then they do something fun. I think they just socialize this last Thursday, or they play sport, or they do some kind of activity. That's what I'm told is what they do here. But on top of that, there are other things that they're involved in that maybe you're not aware of. So apparently they've always been involved in the Family Fest in one way or another, selling things or helping out in one way. They've hosted Mother's Day celebrations. They've hosted, they attend the Mass together once a month, and they do all the ministries at the 12 p.m. Mass. They help out at Holy Week during the Way of the Cross and the Lord's Supper. And of course on Our Lady of Guadalupe, they're involved in the celebrations there too. So they do various things in the life of our parish which you may not be aware of. But now you are aware of them, and I'm aware of them, and I look forward to meeting with them again and meeting more regularly, and having a bit more input in what they do. As I said to you before, I'm not a young priest. I'm 54, but I've been involved with young people most of my ministry. At one stage I was a chaplain in a high school, and had a youth group going in a parish where I've served, and I've always been involved in one way or another. But I think it's important. It's important that young people in our parish are encouraged and listened to and respected, because they're an important part of our life. It's like, if you've got a parish coming together and the young people are missing, well, I think something's wrong. What's wrong? Where are the young people? So I'm pleased to find that we do have some young people in our parish, and they are active, and that's a great start. But I grew up in a parish where they didn't have a youth group, but there was what we used to have then was, we called them youth clubs, and they were kind of like more social gathering places. And one of the neighbouring parishes, one of the Catholic parishes, was where they had a youth club. And on a Sunday evening, me and my friends from school and classmates from school would all congregate at the youth club. that had like a room which was designated especially for the young people, and we just gather and chat. You know, we might play ping pong or listen to music or things like that. And it was a great way of like connecting outside of school for a start. But the other important thing was that it was organized, but it wasn't. It was loosely organized. So there were things going on which you were encouraged to be a part of, but there was never any pressure. You know, so we felt like we could go there on a Sunday and just be there with our friends, and it was, you know, we felt accepted. And occasionally the priest would stop by to say hello, and the youth leaders would organize various field trips. We'd go to different events or masses in the diocese, different things going on, and we went and we enjoyed it and had a good time. And I think about it now as being quite formative about those people who were instrumental in my life at that time. They gave us a place where we felt safe, I think, and we could go and be there with friends. It was faith-based, you know, really, and it helped us to feel like we were doing something which was useful. So, you know, they would take us on, you know, trips to like that. Oh, there's a talk on next week to do with abortion rights, or you know, that kind of thing, or a debating session down at the local university. Who wants to come to that? And we'd go. But we felt like we were doing something which was slightly more, I suppose, exciting than our regular life, which was basically school or home, you know. So it gave us an outlet, and we felt like we belonged there. And so that was my experience. And wherever I've been since, you know, I've taken those things to heart and tried to look to put them in place for young people too. And I think that's important, that we encourage them. So I would say about youth ministry and working with young people, I would say in all of our Catholic parishes, it's essential, you know, really. And I think it's important because they remind us of that we were once young, you know, and that they have something to share with us even now. So I would say that for young people, working with young people in our parishes, first of all, they need to be taken seriously and listened to and respected, and accepted and embraced as being a part of the church as it is now, you know. We might be much older and they're much younger, but we're all part of the same family, you know. Years and years and years ago, Pope John Paul II came out saying, the youth are the church of tomorrow, you know, and that was the big slogan that people were throwing around, and we still hear that today. And it's true, the youth are the church of tomorrow. But I kind of go a bit further, and I say, and I do believe it's more important to say, the youth are the church of today, you know. We actually want them in the church now, you know, when they're young, because maybe when they're older they won't be around, you know. So we have to like hang on to them as best we can right now, you know. So they may be the church of tomorrow, but they won't be the church of tomorrow if they're not the church of today. So we need to encourage them as best we can. There's also a tendency, I want to say, about young people in regards how older people, we see them, you see. As we get older, we have an idea in mind of how we want to see our youth to behave. And, you know, and that's always disappointing because they never behave the way that we want to, you know. That's part of allowing them to be who they are and to grow up, and because they've still got to grow up. But there's also a tendency or a temptation sometimes to say, well, wouldn't it be great to see our young people doing this? Or maybe we could have the young people do that, you know. And I don't think it really works because it tends to be a bit like imposing your ideas on young people. And I don't think it really works. I've tried it and I've failed. So young people need to be encouraged and listened to. They may not know what they want to do in the life of the church, but if you encourage them and to listen to them, they may have ideas themselves which can be developed little by little, but it takes time and it takes a lot of patience and just being there with them generously. but to sort of say, well, actually, in our parish, what we're going to do is we're going to have the young people, we're going to have them sort of take out the trash every Sunday evening. That'll be a great thing for them to do. I think if we decided to do that, it wouldn't go down too well. So I think that need to be validated, encouraged, and listened to, and to allow them to grow into a sense of ministry as God wants them to. And the other thing I'd say about youth ministry too is that it can't just be a social thing. As I said, we had like youth clubs, and they were largely social, but they were kind of rooted in faith. But I from my later experience, I would say that somewhere there has to be some kind of spiritual input. It has to have a bit of Jesus involved, so it can't just all be about playing soccer or going swimming or having field trips or just going to eat pizza. Somewhere along the line there has to be a part of it which is about Jesus, because frankly there are far more entertaining things they can do in their life, and there are better places to go than to church. What we have to offer them, which is more specific and more important really and precious, is the person of Jesus. So I think that their faith needs to be formed in some way through their involvement in the parish, to foster them, really, and to hang on to them. If we're going to hang on to them, we have to hang on to them as believers. So I'd go so far to say as, working with young people is not about entertaining them. Because if you try to do that, they'll always find something far more entertaining than you. Well, certainly far more entertaining than me. But I think Jesus is what they really need, and what, they learn to have a relationship with him, which is something which can set them up for the rest of their lives. So I would go so far as to say that too. But I've had some great experiences with young people. I've learned a lot from young people, and I look forward to learning a lot more from the young people of this parish. In my last parish, it was a lot of work, but we even raised enough money to take 16 of us to World Youth Day in Krakow in Poland, where the young people were just blown away by the size of the church and the being together as young people, and they worked really hard to do that. But that was a big project, I think that young people want to feel useful and needed, and to be doing something which they find useful and helpful, and also which has a kind of goal in mind. So when we did this big fundraising thing to raise money to take us to the World Youth Day, they were involved from the beginning until the end, and sometimes it was hard for them to commit to everything they had to do, but they did a huge deal of work to make this happen and come together, and it was a great achievement for them. And they did it by performing what they called human videos. And if you ever get to look up Christian human videos, it's kind of quite a theatrical, gymnastic a form of dance expression, which has a message. And this youth group that we had used to perform one of these human videos every month in all of the masses at all of our churches, and then we take up a collection and we raise lots of money. We also gave a performance for Cardinal Cupich, which was quite fun too. Anyway, so that's the young people, and I think that they're important, and I'm glad to be aware of them. I look forward to working with them in the future. And and if you get to see some of the young people around here in our parish, say hello, say hello, and don't be afraid of them. And and be aware that they are part of our church right now, and we want to hang on to them. So do everything you can to encourage them to be involved in the life of our community here. Okay? So that's the first piece I was going to say. I'm talking about young people, and I hope it made some sense. And now I want to talk about poetry. Now, before I say anything else, I am no expert on poetry. I know very little about poetry, but I do like some poems, and certain ones stick with me. And so I wanted to share one of those poems with you today. Back when I was a young priest, we used to use poetry in the life of our parish. And one of my assignments, where I was the associate, the pastor, organized this event, and it was called Poems and Pints. Now, connected to our parish was a parish club, social club, and it had a bar. And so once in a while, he would organize this event called Poems and Pints. And it happened in just that way. We would all gather together in a room, and we would read poems, and we would drink pints. It was a social event by which we were able to share with each other some of our favorite poems. Similar, if you like, to what people would call a poetry slam, in some places, but there was no competition or anything like that. And it wasn't poems you'd made up yourself. It was, poems that you liked and which were important to you. So some of the classic poems, sort of from Shakespeare and that kind of thing. Somebody would get up and share, and we'd all be sat around in a room, and we'd be drinking beer, and it was a very good thing to do. And I think one of the poems, the poem I'm about to read to you, is it came up in that session, or one of those sessions, and it's by a Welshman, a Welsh poet, and his name is W.H. Davies. W.H. Davies. Now, to the American eye, if you read that, it would read like Davies, because it's got a V, an I, and an E, as well as an S. But we actually say Davis, not Davies. But he's one of our poets, and the name of this poem is called Leisure, or as we would say here in America, leisure. Okay, but it's called Leisure, and you might know it. And I'm sorry if I'm just dragging out sort of hackneyed old poems for you, but it's a nice poem, and it's got a nice message to it as well, and I'll tell you that in a minute. Anyway, this is called Leisure by W.H. Davies, and it says, "What is this life if, full of care, we have no time to stand and stare, no time to stand beneath the boughs and stare as long as sheep or cows? No time to see, when woods we pass, where squirrels hide their nuts in grass. No time to see, in broad daylight, streams full of stars like skies at night. No time to turn at beauty's glance and watch her feet, how they can dance. No time to wait till her mouth can enrich that smile her eyes began. A poor life this is, if, full of care, we have no time to stand and stare." And that's it. And the reason why I wanted to share that with you is because we are very good at doing things, right? But we're not very good at stopping doing things just long enough to take a look around us and see what's going on. And so I always think this poem, which is called Leisure, that very often our leisure time can be as busy as our work time. You come home from work and you're as busy as when you're in work. And well, actually, no. Leisure is to actually stop and to take a moment and look and see what's happening. To stare, as he says, like for as long as sheep and cows stare. I think it's, to me, it speaks to like the notion that we need to be far more contemplative than we are. We're very active in doing things, but we don't actually sit down and just enjoy who we are, the air that we breathe, and what's going on around us. I always kind of joke, but it's quite serious, that one of my favorite things of doing is intentionally sitting down and staring at the wall, for the very reason that I say, that we're all very, very busy doing things, and I don't think God just wants us to be people doing things. I think God just wants us to very often just be. And by doing so, we open our eyes and our minds and our hearts to many of the things that we would miss, because we're too busy doing. So that's one of my favourite poems called Leisure by W.H. Davis, and who knows, I might share another poem with you on another occasion. But I'll say this about poetry, I think it speaks to us at a different level. You know, I don't know much about poetry, but very often I think it's the rhythm of the words and the combination of words that very often speak to you in a way which is you wouldn't normally, you know, understand. But that's why I think poetry is very good at, how should I say, caressing the soul. You know, poetry caresses the soul. So, I'm not a big expert, but I do like some poems, and that's one of them I'm sharing with you today. I keep hoping that one of these days, you know, Jonah will come forward and actually share something himself, right? But maybe next time I'll talk to you a bit more about Jonah and how he came to be with me, you know. But for now, I think he actually wants to take a nap, and I need to go and get ready because I've got confirmation at 6 this evening, and we're confirming another 25 of our young people. Pray for them, please, and pray that they will stay with us and encourage them as much as you can. Good to be with you always. Take care. Cheers. Bye-bye.